So today we are going to take a look at the Eredin fighter from the Unmatched games. So Eredin is from the Witcher Realms Fall set, along with Yennefer and Triss and Philippa. Eredin is the king of the Wild Hunt. He has his 4 Red Riders. He really has a pretty impressive looking mini. The Red Riders are also very nice looking tokens here. They are all a unique design on them, so it is not just the same dude 4 times. I haven't come up with names for them yet. So Eredin is a melee fighter with a health of 14 and a move of 2. He has 4 Red Riders. His special ability is King of the Wild Hunt. While all of your Red Riders are defeated, Eredin is enraged. When Eredin is enraged, add +1 to the value of your combat cards, and your move value is 3. So when these guys are all dead, he gets enraged and he gets stronger. He's got a little bit of an Achilles thing going on. The differences being you don't have the big nasty discard thing that happens with Achilles. The +1 isn't +2 that Achilles gets, but this is to all of his combat cards. So that would also include his defense cards. So anything played on defense also has that. And his move value is 3, so he gets to move around and is faster. And one thing we're going to see as we get into the deck here, he starts off with the 4 Red Riders. The Red Riders can be replaced. We're going to see that the only way that the Red Riders can be replaced is on Red Rider cards, which means Eredin cannot bring back his Red Riders. Only one of the other Red Riders can bring the others back. And that means that once Eredin is enraged, he is going to stay enraged outside of something crazy like Willow's Resurrect being in on it. So let's take a look at these cards here. Brutal Strike, an attack of 2. This card's effects cannot be canceled. Well, during combat, if your opponent's card has an immediately effect, ignore their card's value. This is a feint punish. You think you're going to feint Eredin? Well, if you drop it into a Brutal Strike, he doesn't care about your feint. Try to cancel my effects. I'm just going to ignore your value. And also, being that this is named Brutal Strike and not something really specific, it means that this is a card that could potentially show up in other decks later on, because it's not something that is tied specifically to Eredin. So I think we're going to see this get used again, guys. It's going to show up one day in someone else's deck. I don't know whose, but it's going to show up. Implacable, a defense of 3. If Eredin is enraged, you may play this card as an attack. So this can just become an attack card. During combat, you may boost this card. Okay, so a 3 defense that you can boost, really, really good. A 3 attack that you can boost, still pretty good. It's not quite as good there, but it's still pretty good, and it may be come along at the right point that you need it. Later in the game, once he's lost his Red Riders, he's got some other effects that go into play if he's enraged. A scheme, Might of the Aen Elle. This is his ongoing effect. The ongoing effect card will be played down in front of you. This white part of the text will happen first, right then. The yellow will stay in effect until this bottom line criteria is met. Draw 1 card, gain 1 action. And get your action back, just get a free card out of there. Really, you're probably more going for this ongoing effect. Eredin does not take damage except from combat damage or exhaustion. Discard this card at the end of your turn if you didn't attack. So this does not get you away from exhaustion damage the way that works with Khonshu and with one of Titania's glamours. It does stop everything except combat damage. So anyone that's going to try to hit you with AoE damage or any type of scheme damage or effect damage doesn't really apply to that. If it is effects that ramp up the value of the card, something like Owl Form, then that would still be able to hit you. And of course, this stays in effect until the end of your turn if you didn't attack. So obviously make sure that you attack on the turn that you play this so that you get, the next time around you can use it again. Backhand, an attack of 4. After combat, your opponent puts one random card from their hand on top of their deck. If Eredin is ranged, they discard it instead. So, random card from their hand going back onto their deck, it might be something that they really needed. And that's great to get that out of the way. Discarding it, much better. And lastly, Portal Defense. A defense of 0. 0? Defense of 0. Ooh. Eredin swaps spaces with an adjacent friendly fighter. That fighter is now the defender. So you can do that and swap with a friendly fighter, probably one of your Red Riders, although I'm in a co-op or 2v2 game, you could do that. Definitely you want to make sure that your teammate is okay with that before you do it. After combat, if Eredin is enraged, draw 2 cards. So you could draw the 2 cards at the end of that. If Eredin plays this when he's enraged, not only is he drawing the 2 cards, but this is at least a 1. So that's something. Obviously, if you swap your guys down here, your Red Riders do not get that effect. So that will only be, that +1 will only be for Eredin. And that 1 is not a whole lot, guys. You're more using this to have one of your boys take the damage for you instead of you taking it. Because if you have to play this card, that's going to hurt. Going into the Red Riders. Unyielding Hordes, an attack of 1. Immediately return the defeated Red Rider to any space. As I pointed out earlier, Red Riders have ways to bring other Red Riders back. During combat, add +1 to this card's value for each other friendly fighter adjacent to the opposing fighter. So this can ramp up a little bit. If you're able to get them with enough spaces, you could potentially have, quite a few guys around. You could turn this into a 4 or a 5 pretty easily. We are now in the innies, so this card here is the only one that the Red Riders have. Foul Purpose, an attack of 3. If Eredin is enraged, you may play this card face up to target a fighter in any space. So you can just throw this 3 at anybody. After combat, you may defeat a Red Rider to return this card to your hand. Well, obviously you're not doing both of these effects because if Eredin is enraged, you're not going to have a Red Rider to use to return that. But it gives you 2 different ways to use it, or the Red Rider could use it there, and you could still do the defeat to return it even if a Red Rider played it. Wild Hunt, versatile of 3. After combat, deal 1 damage to each opposing fighter that is adjacent to at least one of your fighters. If Eredin is enraged, deal 2 damage instead. So you could deal 1 damage to it if he's enraged. They're pretty much going to have to be adjacent to Eredin, but you get to draw 2 damage on them. So all this other stuff you get to do if he's enraged. It's kind of awesome. Skirmish. Hey, we know what that card does. Versatile of 4. If you win the combat, move one of the fighters in the combat up to 2 spaces. We're not getting a lot of common cards in the Witcher sets, but this is one of them. No one ever complains about having Skirmish in their deck. Icy Guile, versatile of 2, immediately. If Eredin is enraged, cancel all effects on your opponent's card. During combat, you may defeat a Red Rider to ignore the value of your opponent's card. So it's either Eredin's playing it and he's enraged and cancels the effects, or you defeat a Red Rider to ignore the value. Once again, you can't do both. And lastly, a scheme, close for the kill. Draw 2 cards, move each of your fighters up to 3 spaces. They may move through opposing fighters. Really, this is interesting because it's an any, but it doesn't really matter who plays it because it's going to be the same effect all the way around. The only thing that would be different on it is that if you were in a 2v2 or co-op game and Eredin were to die, but you still had Red Riders, the Red Riders would be able to play this card. That's really the only thing I can come up with. It's going to be relevant for that. So we can see that Eredin has a lot of other effects besides just his ability for when he is enraged. There's a number of card effects that come into play on that. We also see that defeating Red Riders either directly or by playing something like Portal Defense is also another part of the game there that lets you get rid of those guys and get Eredin closer to being enraged. Like I said, being enraged is not quite as strong as Achilles when he gets angry, but it's still pretty good. And a lot of these cards become much, much better when he's enraged. I mean, a Skirmish as a 5 is really very strong, and honestly, you got a very good chance of that effect going off. And also, like these 3s on Wild Hunt and the like start to become a lot better when Eredin is playing them as a 4. So it's going to be an interesting thing with him to see how long you want to keep those Red Riders around. When do you want them to die? I don't know that this is going to be quite like Achilles, where that needs to happen like pretty much right away. I think you're willing to hang around with your Red Riders because they have some utility to them, and you're willing to have them around a while before they die off. They do die off easier than Patroclus, all being 1 health, being, yeah, there's 4 of them and potentially more with the effects bringing them back. But I don't know that you have to try to get rid of them quite as early. But once again, it's going to be really interesting play style, and look forward to see this guy. So if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and a like. You can go down to the comment section and let me know what you think down there. And you can also subscribe to my channel. Then make sure to catch all the videos that I post so you don't miss anything. This is Jeremy with Poindexter G, and we'll see you around next time.